The orchestra had only just finished the waltz when Lord Nathaniel Ashcombe climbed onto the lowest step of the musicians' platform and raised his champagne glass. "Before any of you escape Blackthorn Hall with my best wine," he called, "I have an announcement." Laughter moved through the ballroom. Lady Cecily Arden stopped beside one of the marble columns. Across the room, Duke Lucian Ashcombe looked up from his conversation with an elderly magistrate. Nathaniel was smiling directly at Cecily. That smile should have reassured her. Instead, something inside her tightened. "Nathaniel," she murmured. He either did not hear or pretended not to. Nearly 200 guests turned toward him. "My friends," Nathaniel continued, "some of you have spent the last 6 months asking when Lady Cecily will finally take pity upon me." More laughter. Cecily managed to smile. Nathaniel stretched out one hand toward her. "The answer is the 17th of October. The room exploded. Applause. Gasps. Women rushed toward Cecily. Someone shouted congratulations. Nathaniel stepped down from the platform, glowing with the confidence of a man who believed he had just given everyone good news. Cecily remained where she was. They had discussed autumn. They had discussed Blackthorn's chapel. They had even discussed whether they should invite 50 guests or 500. But they had never chosen a day. Nathaniel reached her. 17th, he said softly. "You said you liked October." "I said I liked October leaves." "Then we shall provide thousands of them." Cecily looked at him. He kissed her hand before she could answer. More applause followed. Then Nathaniel turned. "And there is one man whose approval I require." The room quietened again. Nathaniel faced his elder brother. "Your Grace?" Lucian Ashcombe stood near the windows, tall and severe in black evening clothes, one hand resting behind his back. He was 34, and had been Duke of Blackthorn for 11 years. Men twice his age lowered their voices when he entered a room. Tenants described him as fair. His enemies described him as impossible. His younger brother usually described him as born 80 years old. Tonight Lucian said nothing. Nathaniel laughed. "Brother?" Lucian's gaze had moved past him. To Cecily. She felt it immediately. Not admiration. Not even affection. Something quieter. Something more dangerous precisely because he was trying so hard not to show it. Nathaniel glanced between them. "You look as though I have announced my funeral." Several guests laughed. Lucian finally lifted his glass. To Lord Nathaniel and Lady Cecily. His voice was perfectly controlled. "May October bring them everything they expect." Everyone drank. Cecily did not. Because she could not stop wondering why Lucian had chosen the word expect. Nathaniel was still enjoying himself. "And since my brother has kindly agreed to oversee the marriage settlements." Lucian's eyes snapped toward him. "Lady Cecily shall remain at Blackthorn until the ceremony." The applause began again. Cecily stared at Nathaniel. Lucian did the same. Clearly, this arrangement was news to both of them. Nathaniel grinned. There, settled. That was Nathaniel's greatest charm. And, although Cecily did not yet understand it, one of his greatest faults. He believed difficult things became simple once he had decided they should be. Before Cecily could answer, the orchestra began again. Nathaniel pulled her toward the dance floor. "Be angry tomorrow. I may begin tonight. You will forgive me before supper. We have already eaten supper." "Then I have miscalculated badly." Despite herself, Cecily laughed. Nathaniel's face softened. There were reasons she had accepted him. He was warm where Lucian was cold. Spontaneous where Lucian was cautious. Nathaniel made rooms easier to breathe in. For nearly a year, Cecily had believed that was enough. As they turned through the first figures of the dance, a young baronet named Sir Edmund Vale smiled at them. "A fortunate match," he said. "Particularly for Lady Cecily." Nathaniel raised an eyebrow. "Only for her?" Sir Edmund laughed. "You are the younger brother. Far safer." Cecily's step faltered. Sir Edmund continued without noticing. No woman with good sense wants to become a duchess. Ceremonies, heirs, endless estates, half the county watching whether you use the proper spoon. Nathaniel chuckled. Cecily said quietly, "On that point, Sir Edmund, we agree." Someone standing at the edge of the dance floor heard her. Lucian. Their eyes met. Cecily looked away first. A few minutes later, Lady Beatrice Hawthorne joined them. She was nearing 70 and considered tact an unnecessary invention. She tapped Lucian's arm with her fan. "You must marry soon, Blackthorn. I had not realized the county was endangered by my bachelorhood. It is. If something happens to you, Nathaniel becomes Duke." Nathaniel bowed dramatically. A horrifying prospect. Lady Beatrice turned to Cecily. "And you, my dear, would become Duchess." Cecily stopped smiling. "No." Lady Beatrice blinked. Nathaniel laughed. "She means she hopes Lucian survives." Cecily looked toward Lucian. "Yes," she said. "I very much hope he does." Lucian watched her for a moment longer than politeness required. Then chaos interrupted them. Near the ballroom entrance, a footman was arguing with a mud-covered man. "You cannot come in here. I've asked 3 times to speak with His Grace. This is a private assembly." "Then tell him tomorrow morning there may not be cottages left to discuss." Lucian was already moving. The man removed his cap when he saw him. "Your Grace." "What is it, Mr. Holloway?" Cecily noticed Lucian knew the man by name. "My lease, sir, and the survey." Holloway produced a folded document. Several nearby guests moved away as though poverty were contagious. Nathaniel sighed. "Can this not wait until morning?" Holloway's expression hardened. "With respect, my lord, the surveyors return at sunrise." Lucian took the paper. Cecily glimpsed the drawing, then frowned. "May I?" Everyone looked at her. Lucian did not hand it over. "Lady Cecily, the eastern line is wrong." Holloway stared. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Cecily pointed. "That stream does not turn there." Nathaniel laughed softly. "My dear, I doubt you have ever seen Holloway's farm." "I have not." "Then how?" "Because water does not climb hills." Silence. Cecily stepped closer. "The contour markings contradict the boundary. If this line is followed, the road will cut through 3 cottages unnecessarily." Lucian studied the map, then her. "How did you notice that?" Cecily realized too late that she had said too much. "I pay attention." Lucian's expression said he did not believe her, but he turned to Holloway. "No work begins tomorrow. Tell the surveyors the order comes from me." Relief crossed the man's face. "Thank you, Your Grace." Nathaniel clapped Lucian's shoulder. "Excellent. Crisis postponed. Now can we return to celebrating my marriage?" Lucian looked once more at Cecily. "I suspect the crisis has only begun." The next morning, Cecily found the Duke waiting in the library. On the table between them lay the survey map. Beside it sat 3 letters bearing the crest of Arden Cartographic and Printing House. Cecily stopped in the doorway. Lucian held up one letter. "The handwriting is familiar." She said nothing. He continued. "Your father founded Arden Printing." "Yes." "I was told the business was managed by trustees after his death." "It is." Lucian slid another letter forward. "This one corrects a drainage survey, commissioned by Blackthorn last spring." Cecily's jaw tightened. "And?" "It was signed C. Arden." She met his gaze. Lucian waited. Finally, Cecily crossed the room. "I manage it." "You? You sound disappointed." "Surprised. That is a polite word. Does Nathaniel know?" The question struck harder than she expected. "He knows the business remains mine." "That was not my question." Cecily looked toward the windows. "No." Lucian leaned back. "You intend to marry my brother while hiding your occupation from him." "My occupation? You know what I mean." "Yes," Cecily said. "I do." She turned back sharply. "I intend to marry your brother while preserving the one thing that belongs entirely to me." "You assume Nathaniel would object." I assumed society would. Nathaniel is not society. No, but men often discover society's opinions conveniently after marriage. Lucien's face changed. Not anger. Something closer to curiosity. You do not trust him. I trust Nathaniel. Then tell him. Cecily gathered the letters. You make truth sound remarkably simple for a man who keeps half his estate locked in ledgers. Lucien stood. You know nothing about my estate. Perhaps. She reached the door. Lucien spoke behind her. Then explain the map. Cecily stopped. He had caught her. She closed her eyes briefly. My father taught me cartography before he taught me French. Lucien looked genuinely surprised. Cecily continued. I have spent 12 years correcting the mistakes of men who assumed a woman could only decorate a map, not read one. For the first time, Lucien almost smiled. Almost. Then I require your help. That surprised her more than anger would have. With what? He pointed toward the survey. This is not the only boundary discrepancy. Over the next week, Blackthorn Hall became a battlefield of ink. Lucien and Cecily worked through old surveys, leases, and drainage plans. They disagreed constantly. You cannot move a tenant because a road would be prettier straight, Cecily told him. It is not about prettiness. It is always called efficiency, when rich men wish poor men would move. Lucien looked up. And it is always called cruelty by people who do not have to pay the wages of 800 workers. Cecily fell silent. That answer irritated her, because it was not entirely wrong. Lucien noticed. Instead of triumphing, he pushed a ledger toward her. Look, she did. Blackthorn employed hundreds more people than she had imagined. Repairs, mills, farms, schools, pensions for widows. For the first time, Cecily understood that Lucien's severity was not merely pride. He carried an entire world that could collapse if he miscalculated. And Lucien, in turn, began noticing things about her. She remembered tenant names. She corrected survey measurements without boasting. She once spent an hour rewriting a lease because an elderly farmer had been charged for land he had never occupied. Lucien found her returning the corrected copy personally. You could have given that to the steward. I could. Then why did you not? Because he has spent 3 months being told by men with better coats that he misunderstood his own field. Lucien stared at her. Cecily folded the document. People with less power should not have to beg those with more power simply to be treated fairly. She walked away. Lucien remained where he was. That evening, Nathaniel found him alone. You like her? Lucien looked up too quickly. Nathaniel smiled. Cecily. Lucien returned his attention to the papers. She is exhausting. That means yes. She will reorganize your entire household within 6 months. Nathaniel laughed. I knew you would approve eventually. Lucien said nothing, because approval had stopped being the problem. 3 days later, Cecily and Lucien were examining succession maps when Nathaniel's name appeared beneath Lucien's. Lucien casually said, If I die without an heir, all this becomes his problem. Cecily's pencil stopped. No. Lucien glanced at her. No? Nathaniel cannot become duke. I assure you, Parliament disagrees. I mean before October. Lucien studied her. Why? Cecily closed the ledger. Because if Nathaniel became Duke of Blackthorn before our wedding, there would be no wedding. Lucien stared at her. You would leave my brother because he inherited my title? Yes. There was no hesitation. Lucien's voice dropped. Why? Cecily looked toward the darkened window. I made a promise years ago. To whom? Myself. What promise? Her fingers tightened around the pencil. That I would never marry a duke. Lucien went utterly still. For reasons Cecily could not understand, the answer seemed to strike him personally. Before he could ask another question, she stood. I would prefer not to discuss it. She left. Lucien remained beside the succession ledger, staring at the place where Nathaniel's name followed his own. And for the first time, he understood the absurd cruelty of his position. The woman he should never want was promised to his brother, and even if she were not, she had already sworn never to belong to a man like him. The next morning, Cecily discovered something worse. A series of payments had vanished from estate accounts connected to the disputed survey. At first, she assumed it was clerical error. Then she found the authorization marks. N.A. Nathaniel Ashcombe. Again, 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 nearly every month. That afternoon, Nathaniel found her examining the books. Cecily. She closed the ledger. What are these? His smile disappeared. Where did you get that? The archive. You should leave those accounts alone. Why? Because there are family matters you do not understand. She stared at him. You sound exactly like every man who has ever used ignorance as a lock. Please. The word surprised her. Nathaniel reached for her hand. Wait until after the wedding. Cecily pulled back. Why? I cannot explain yet. Cannot or will not. His silence answered badly. That evening she told Lucien. He listened without interruption. When she finished, Cecily whispered, If I continue, I may destroy my own engagement. Lucien looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, Do not choose the answer you prefer, merely because the truth may cost you more. So she continued. Near midnight they found the hidden ledger. Lucien opened it. Cecily read the first page, then the second, then the third. Her stomach turned. Every suspicious payment carried Nathaniel's initials. Footsteps sounded outside. The archive door opened. Nathaniel entered. He saw Cecily, then Lucien, then the ledger between them. His face changed. Cecily rose slowly. Nathaniel. He shut the door behind him. What have you done? Nathaniel looked at his brother. For once there was no smile in him at all. Then he looked back at the woman he was supposed to marry. Before you accuse me of stealing from Blackthorn, he said, you should ask Lucien what he has been hiding from you. Cecily turned toward the Duke. Lucien had gone completely pale. And suddenly the ledger no longer seemed like the most dangerous secret in the room. Nathaniel did not move from the door. Cecily looked from him to Lucien. What is he talking about? Lucien's face had hardened again, but it was too late. She had seen the fear. Nathaniel crossed the room and placed both hands on the edge of the table. Tell her. Nathaniel. No. His voice cracked through the archive. You have spent 11 years deciding what everyone else should know. For once, allow someone the dignity of deciding what she can bear. Cecily turned fully toward Lucien. What have you been hiding? Lucien said nothing. Nathaniel laughed bitterly. There, that silence. That is how Blackthorn has survived for a decade. Nathaniel, enough. Then speak. Lucien looked at Cecily. The estate is failing. She stared at him. What? Not tomorrow. Not next month. But slowly. Nathaniel stepped away from the table. Slowly? Half the western farms are mortgaged. Cecily's eyes widened. Lucien ignored him. My father left liabilities concealed behind several trusts. When I inherited, I believed I could repair them without disturbing the tenants. And you could not? I repaired some. Nathaniel gave a humorless smile, at the cost of nearly everything else. Cecily looked down at the ledger. And these payments? Nathaniel answered. Mine. Lucien turned sharply. You were told to stop. Yes. And you were told you cannot save an estate by starving yourself and pretending no one notices. Cecily frowned. Nathaniel, where did the money go? He hesitated. Then opened another section of the ledger. To pensions, roof repairs, seed grain after last year's floods, the schoolhouse, wages when Lucien delayed them because the treasury was empty. Cecily looked at Lucien. You delayed wages? For 6 days. You told me Blackthorn employed 800 people as though that proved its strength. It proved its responsibility. No, she said quietly. It proved its burden. That landed. Lucien looked away. Nathaniel leaned against the shelves. I borrowed privately. Cecily's attention snapped back to him. From whom? Nathaniel did not answer quickly enough. Lucien did. Sir Alaric Fenwick. Cecily knew the name. A wealthy landholder to the north. A man who had been trying for years to buy portions of Blackthorn's grazing land. You borrowed from him? Nathaniel's jaw tightened. I believed I could repay him after the marriage settlement. The room went still. Cecily understood before he said anything else. My marriage settlement. Nathaniel stepped forward. Not yours personally. She laughed once. It was a small sound, far more painful than shouting. You announced our wedding date in front of 200 people while expecting my family settlement to repair your brother's estate. That is not why I am marrying you, but it is why October suddenly became urgent. Nathaniel's silence confirmed it. Cecily removed the engagement ring from her finger. Nathaniel stared at it. She placed it on the table, not dramatically, almost carefully. No. His face changed. Cecily, not yet. She pushed the ring toward him. I need to know which part of my future was chosen because you loved me, and which part was calculated because Blackthorn needed money. Nathaniel went white. Lucien said quietly, Cecily, he does love you. She turned on him. And you knew. That silenced him. You knew he intended to use the settlement. I knew he borrowed money. I did not know he intended to accelerate the wedding. But you knew enough. Lucien's expression tightened. Yes, Cecily nodded. Then perhaps both of you should stop deciding which truths women are strong enough to hear. She walked out. Neither brother followed. The engagement was not formally ended. Not yet. But by morning, Blackthorn Hall felt different. Cecily moved from the grand guest chambers to a smaller room overlooking the kitchen garden. Nathaniel sent flowers. She returned them. He sent a letter. She kept it unopened for 2 days. Lucien sent nothing. That annoyed her more than it should have. On the third morning, she found him standing beside the stable yard, speaking with 2 farmers. He saw her. Stopped. Then bowed. Lady Cecily. The title sounded like a wall. She hated that too. I require the Western Boundary records. They are in the lower archive. I know. Then why are you asking me? Because the archive is locked. Lucien produced a key. She held out her hand. He did not give it to her. You intend to continue? With the surveys. You are under no obligation. No, that is precisely why I am doing it. Something almost like admiration crossed his face. Then he placed the key in her palm. Their fingers touched. But both pulled away too quickly. Cecily looked at him. Lucien looked at the farmers. Neither spoke of it. That afternoon they resumed work, not side by side. Across the table. Always across the table. It became ridiculous. If Cecily approached one end, Lucien found a reason to move to the other. If their hands reached for the same document, he withdrew first. Finally she snapped. Do I have a contagious illness? Lucien looked up. No. Then stop behaving as though proximity may kill you. His expression changed. That is not what concerns me. Cecily's heartbeat stumbled. She lowered her eyes. Then what does? Lucien was silent too long. Before he could answer, Nathaniel entered. He saw them, saw the distance between them, saw perhaps something else as well. I came for the account books. Lucien handed them over. Nathaniel did not leave. Instead, he looked at Cecily. I would like to speak with you. Then speak. Alone. Lucien stood immediately. Cecily almost told him to remain. She did not. Once the door closed, Nathaniel faced her. I did not propose because of your money. I know. That answer surprised him. I believe you loved me before any of this. Loved? Cecily caught the word. Nathaniel heard it too. He looked wounded. She softened. I do not know what I believe anymore. He stared at the floor. When we first met, you laughed at something I said that was not funny. It was terrible. You still laughed. I was being polite. You have destroyed one of my fondest memories. For the first time in days, she almost smiled. Nathaniel saw it. Hope flickered, then faded. I thought I could fix everything before you ever needed to know. That is the problem. I know. He looked at her. I understand that now. There was no excuse in his voice. That mattered. But not enough. Not yet. That evening, Cecily found Lucien alone in the orangery. He was studying a letter. When he noticed her, he folded it immediately. She sighed. Another secret? No. That sounded convincing. Lucien almost smiled. She walked past him toward the glass doors. Outside, rain tapped against the panes. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Cecily said, "My mother married a duke." Lucien turned. She had never told him this. "Not my father," she continued. "Before him." Lucien remained silent. His name was Edmund Valehurst. He inherited her printing contracts through marriage. Her designs, her maps, her methods, everything she built. Lucien understood. Cecily's voice remained steady. He placed his name on her work. Society praised his innovation. When she protested, he called her ungrateful. Lucien's jaw tightened. She left him? Eventually. That would have caused scandal. It did. Cecily looked at him. She lost friends, invitations, family connections, but she recovered her own name. Lucien finally understood the oath. You were 17. Yes. When you promised never to marry a duke. Yes. He glanced away. Then it was not the title itself. It was what the title permitted. And you believe all dukes are the same? No. That answer surprised him. Cecily stepped closer. I believe power makes selfishness easier to excuse. Lucien met her eyes. And what do you believe about me? The question was too personal, too dangerous. Cecily answered anyway. I have not decided. Lucien's breathing changed. Then a servant entered. Your Grace, Lord Nathaniel asks for you immediately. The moment vanished. Nathaniel was waiting in the study with a letter bearing dark green wax, Fenwick's seal. Lucien opened it. His expression hardened. What does he want? Cecily asked. Nathaniel answered. The Eastern Valley. Lucien read aloud only the essential line. If repayment was not made within 3 weeks, Fenwick intended to enforce Nathaniel's private notes and challenge several Blackthorn land titles in court. Cecily frowned. Challenge them on what grounds? Nathaniel looked at Lucien. That is the part we do not understand. Lucien handed Cecily the letter. At the bottom was a sentence written separately. Ask Miss Arden what her father printed in the winter of 1798. Cecily went still. My father? Lucien looked at her. You were not Miss Arden then? My mother was. Nathaniel frowned. What did your father print? I do not know. But Cecily was already thinking. Her father had kept old plates, thousands of them, stored beneath the original printing house in London. Maps, charters, estate surveys, documents too valuable to destroy and too old to use. Lucien saw recognition on her face. What is it? Cecily whispered. The archive plates. 2 days later, Cecily returned from London carrying a narrow wooden case. Nathaniel and Lucien were waiting in the library. She placed it on the table. Her hands were shaking. I found 3 plates marked Blackthorn. Lucien opened the case. Inside lay copper printing plates blackened with age. One bore the original Ashcombe estate boundary. Another showed the Eastern Valley. The third contained a charter text. Cecily had already taken an impression. She unfolded it. Nathaniel leaned over first, then went silent. Lucien read more slowly. His face drained of color. What does it say? Nathaniel asked. Lucien did not answer. Cecily did. It says Fenwick does not own the Eastern Valley. Nathaniel exhaled. Then we are saved. No. Cecily looked at him. It says something else. She pointed to a line near the bottom. The Ashcombe family had been granted temporary stewardship over 4 villages, nearly 70 years earlier. Temporary, not ownership. Nathaniel stared. Lucian read the clause again. That cannot be correct. It is. If this charter is valid, Cecily finished for him. Then Blackthorn has collected rents from land it never legally owned, Nathaniel whispered. For 70 years. No one spoke. The estate was not merely in danger. It was built partly on a wrong. Lucian looked at the document for a long time, then at Cecily. What would happen if this became public? She answered carefully. The villages could reclaim the land. How much? Nearly a third of Blackthorn. Nathaniel stepped back. That would destroy us. Lucian said nothing. Nathaniel turned to Cecily. Who else knows? Only the 3 of us. His eyes moved to the fireplace. Cecily understood immediately. No. Nathaniel looked at her. I did not say anything. You looked at the fire. It is one piece of paper. It is the truth. It is 70 years old. And the families paying rent are alive now. Nathaniel ran both hands through his hair. If we surrender that land, Blackthorn collapses. Cecily looked at Lucian. He had still said nothing. That frightened her most. Then Lucian picked up the charter, walked toward the fireplace. Nathaniel watched him. Cecily's breath stopped. Lucian. He stood before the flames. The paper trembled slightly in his hand. For the first time since she had known him, the Duke of Blackthorn looked like a man who truly did not know what to do. Behind him, Nathaniel whispered, "One match and none of this ever happened." Lucian stared into the fire, then slowly turned, not toward Nathaniel, toward Cecily, and the question in his eyes was worse than any confession. Because suddenly Cecily understood that Blackthorn's future, Nathaniel's freedom, and the fate of 4 villages depended on what the Duke did with the paper in his hand. And whatever choice Lucian made next would tell her exactly what kind of man he truly was. Lucian stood before the fire with the charter in his hand. One movement would end everything. The flames were close enough to blacken the edge of the paper. Nathaniel's voice was barely above a whisper. "One match, Lucian." Cecily said nothing. She would not beg him. She would not tell him what kind of man to be. She had spent too much of her life watching powerful men demand that women trust promises while hiding inconvenient truths. If Lucian destroyed the charter, she wanted to know that decision belonged entirely to him. The Duke looked down at the document. Then he stepped away from the fire. Nathaniel closed his eyes. Lucian placed the charter carefully on the table. "No." Nathaniel stared at him. "Think. I have. You have thought for 10 seconds. I have been thinking about Blackthorn for 11 years. Lucian's voice remained calm. That is precisely the problem. He looked around the room, at the portraits, at generations of Ashcombe men staring down from gilded frames. I inherited their land, their title, their debts, their mistakes. Somewhere along the way I began believing that preserving what they left me was the same thing as protecting the people living beneath it." Nathaniel stepped forward. "Hundreds of people depend upon this estate." "Yes." "And you intend to tear it apart?" "I intend to return what was never ours." Nathaniel laughed in disbelief. "And when wages cannot be paid, we rebuild. With what?" Lucian glanced toward Cecily. "Something other than theft." Nathaniel recoiled as if struck. Lucian immediately regretted the word, but he did not take it back. For a long moment, the brothers stared at each other. Then Nathaniel whispered, "You always get to be righteous, because I am the one who makes the ugly choices." "Nathaniel." "No." His eyes were bright now. "You inherited the title, so you became duty. I became everything else. The smiling brother, the irresponsible brother, the one who could borrow money because the Duke of Blackthorn was too honorable to admit his estate was drowning." Lucian's expression softened. I should have told you how bad it was. Yes. I should have trusted you. Yes? Lucien lowered his voice. And you should never have decided Cecily's marriage settlement belonged among your solutions. Nathaniel looked toward her. This time he had no answer. Cecily quietly said, "That part is true." Nathaniel nodded. Then he walked out. He did not slam the door. Somehow that hurt more. By sunrise, Lucien had written 4 letters. 1 to Blackthorn's solicitor, 1 to the magistrate, 1 to representatives of the 4 villages, and 1 to Sir Alaric Fenwick. Cecily found him at his desk shortly after 7. "You are truly doing it." He sealed the final letter. "Yes, you may lose almost a third of the estate. Yes, you may lose your influence in the county. Very possibly." She looked at him. "And Fenwick?" Lucien handed her his letter. "He receives repayment according to law. Nothing more." Cecily read the final sentence. "Blackthorn will not purchase its survival with another man's land." She looked up. Lucien was watching her, not proudly, almost nervously, as though her opinion mattered more than he wished it did. Cecily folded the letter. "You asked me once what I believed about you." He remembered. "You said you had not decided. I am closer." Something changed in his face. Before he could answer, the study door opened. Nathaniel entered. He looked terrible. His coat was unbuttoned. His hair had not been combed. He placed Cecily's engagement ring on the desk. She stared at it. "I spent the night thinking," he said. Lucien rose. Nathaniel ignored him. He looked only at Cecily. "I loved you." Cecily swallowed. "I know. I think part of me still does." Nathaniel smiled sadly. "But I also loved the future I had created around you. The house, children, October, everything arranged so neatly that I never noticed you had stopped choosing it with me." Cecily's eyes filled. "Nathaniel, do not make this easier." He pushed the ring toward her. "I announced our wedding date without asking you." A faint, embarrassed laugh escaped him. Perhaps that should have warned us both. She almost laughed through her tears. Nathaniel looked toward Lucien then. The warmth vanished. "I am not forgiving you today." Lucien nodded. "I did not expect you to, but I will not pretend I do not know." Lucien went still. Nathaniel's voice became quieter. "You love her." Cecily stopped breathing. Lucien did not deny it. Nathaniel looked at his brother for several seconds, then said, "If you ever make her regret choosing you, I shall personally help the villagers take the remaining 2/3 of Blackthorn." Against all reason, Cecily laughed. Lucien almost did. Nathaniel did not. Not yet. He walked out. But this time, when he reached the door, he looked back. That was enough to suggest the door between the brothers had not closed forever. The truth became public 3 weeks later. Lucien refused to release the charter quietly. He invited landholders, magistrates, tenant representatives, and half the county to Blackthorn Hall. The same ballroom where Nathaniel had announced his wedding date was filled again. Only now there was no orchestra, no champagne, no celebration. Sir Alaric Fenwick stood near the front, wearing the satisfied expression of a man who believed he had come to watch a duke collapse. Cecily stood near the same marble column where she had stood on the night Nathaniel announced October. The memory struck her painfully. How different everything had become. Lucien stepped onto the musicians' platform. The ballroom fell silent. "My family has held stewardship over 4 villages for 70 years, he began. During that time, Blackthorn treated stewardship as ownership. A murmur moved through the crowd. Fenwick smiled. Lucien continued. That was unlawful. The murmuring became louder. Someone called, "Are you admitting the claim?" "I am admitting the truth." Silence. Lucien ordered copies of the charter distributed. The village representatives stared at the documents, as if afraid they might vanish. "From this day," Lucien said, "Blackthorn renounces every claim to those lands." An older landowner shouted, "You will ruin your own dukedom." Lucian looked directly at him. Then it will be ruined, honestly. The room froze. Cecily felt something inside her shift. But Sir Alaric stepped forward. A noble performance. He smiled at the crowd. Though perhaps his grace should explain why Lady Cecily Arden suddenly became indispensable to the investigation. Cecily's stomach tightened. Fenwick turned toward her. The woman was engaged to one Ashcombe brother, while privately spending her days with the other. Whispers began immediately. Nathaniel moved. Cecily caught his arm. "No," Fenwick continued. "She conveniently possessed the documents that saved Blackthorn from my claim. And now Lord Nathaniel's engagement has ended." Lucian descended from the platform. "Be careful," Fenwick smiled. "Or what? You will challenge me for insulting your brother's abandoned bride?" Cecily stepped forward herself. "No." Every eye turned to her. "You may insult me if you wish, Sir Alaric, but do not lie about the documents." She held up the original printing record. "My father's company preserved them because that was its duty." Fenwick scoffed. "A convenient duty." Then another voice spoke. "Actually, it cost her." Nathaniel. He walked into the center of the ballroom. The room became completely still. Nathaniel looked at Cecily. Then the crowd. Lady Cecily could have destroyed those records. Fenwick frowned. Nathaniel continued. "Had she done so, our marriage settlement would have rescued Blackthorn. She would have married into one of the wealthiest houses in the county." Cecily stared at him. Nathaniel's voice hardened. "She chose the truth, knowing it would destroy the future I had promised her." He looked toward Fenwick. "So if your accusation is that she manipulated my family for advantage, you have selected the one woman in this room who repeatedly refused every advantage dishonesty offered her." Fenwick said nothing. Nathaniel turned to Cecily. "Then, before everyone, I wronged her too." A murmur rippled outward. "I announced a wedding date she had not chosen. I concealed debts from her. And when fear made me selfish, I attempted to make her inheritance part of my rescue plan." Cecily's eyes filled. Nathaniel continued. "I believed loving someone gave me the right to decide what was best for them." He looked at her. "It does not." No applause followed. The moment was too raw for applause. But Cecily understood what Nathaniel had just given her. Not an apology whispered safely in private. The truth publicly spoken, where his pride could not hide from it. Fenwick left before the meeting ended. Nobody stopped him. The following months were difficult. Blackthorn shrank. Several servants were dismissed with compensation. Lucian sold horses, paintings, and 2 houses in London. Nathaniel left for Bristol, where he accepted a position managing a shipping concern rather than continuing to live from his brother's allowance. He wrote occasionally. The letters to Lucian were stiff at first, then less stiff. Healing did not arrive dramatically. It arrived one sentence at a time. Cecily returned to London. Arden Printing expanded. For the first time, her name appeared openly on its publications. Cecily Arden, cartographer and proprietor. Lucian never asked her to hide it. He never even asked her to return. That surprised her. Then one morning, 6 months after the charter was revealed, a package arrived. Inside was a legal document. Cecily read it twice, then a third time. Blackthorn's household settlements had been rewritten. Any future duchess would retain independent ownership of property, businesses, income, inventions, and published work. No husband could absorb them into the estate. At the bottom, Lucian had written only, "Some traditions survive because no one has bothered to ask whether they deserve to." Cecily traveled to Blackthorn the following week. She found Lucian in the library. He rose the moment she entered. "Cecily." Not Lady Cecily. Just Cecily. She placed the document on his desk. "Why?" "Because it was wrong." "For me?" "No." That answer mattered. "I changed it because you made me notice something I should have noticed without you." Cecily looked around. The great Ashcombe portraits still hung there, but beneath them, sat newly framed maps. One bore a name she recognized, her mother's. Not the Duke who had stolen credit for the work, her mother. Cecily's throat tightened. "You found these?" "In an old collection." Lucien approached slowly. "I could ask you something selfish now." She knew. Her heart began to pound. He stopped several feet away. "But I remember your promise." Cecily's eyes burned. Lucien continued. "You swore you would never disappear behind a duke's name. I swore I would never marry one." "Yes. And you intend to respect that?" His smile was sad. "I intend to respect you." That was the moment. Not when he surrendered land. Not when he defended her. Not even when he changed Blackthorn. This, a powerful man standing before the woman he loved and refusing to turn love into another form of pressure. Cecily stepped closer. "My mother once told me something after she left Valehurst." Lucien waited. "She said the tragedy was not that she married a duke." Cecily's voice trembled. "It was that she married a man who believed becoming his wife meant becoming less herself." Lucien said nothing. Cecily smiled through tears. "I think I misunderstood my oath." His breath caught. "I never truly swore against dukes." She placed her hand in his. "I swore against disappearing." Lucien stared at their joined hands, then at her. And you are the first man who ever asked me to remain exactly who I am." For perhaps the first time in his life, the Duke of Blackthorn forgot how to speak. Cecily laughed softly. "You may ask now." "Ask what?" She raised an eyebrow. "Lucien." Understanding arrived. He actually looked nervous. "Cecily Arden." "Yes? Would you marry me?" She let him suffer for 3 long seconds, then smiled. "Yes." They married the following spring. Nathaniel stood beside his brother. When the clergyman asked whether anyone objected, Nathaniel coughed loudly. Lucien turned so sharply that half the chapel laughed. Nathaniel grinned. "Dust." Cecily laughed hardest of all. Blackthorn never regained all the land it surrendered. It became something better. Smaller. Fairer. Prosperous. Because its people trusted the family governing beside them rather than above them. Cecily remained Cecily Arden in every map, book, and contract she published. And whenever society introduced her simply as the Duchess of Blackthorn, Lucien would quietly add, "And proprietor of Arden Printing, if you wish to impress her." Years later, when someone asked Cecily how a woman who had sworn never to marry a duke had somehow become one's wife, she would always smile before answering. Because the truth was simple. Lucien had never convinced her to break her promise. He had loved her well enough to understand what the promise was protecting.